Golf isn't always just about birdies and bogeys. Sometimes it's about tempers flaring, cheating scandals, and a few punches thrown in the pro shop. From wild confrontations to shady scorecards, these are the most disrespectful moments that turned golf from a gentleman's game to pure chaos. Let's dive right in. Let's start with the kind of moment that made golf fans rub their eyes and wonder if they were watching a prank show instead of a professional tournament. We're at the 2024 Solheim Cup. Allison Lee steps up to her ball on the second hole, 86 yards out. Everything looks normal on the surface. But just before this shot, something hilarious happened behind the scenes. Her caddies, Jack Fulham and Taylor Takata, had made a little bet. They said, "If our players hole out, we'll pay $500. Simple enough, but Allison wasn't interested in money. She fired back with a way better offer: "If I hole it, you two take your shirts off." Now, no one actually thought it would happen. But then, it did. Lee hits her shot, the ball lands on the green, spins back, and drops in for eagle. Game over. And just like that, golf took a wild turn. Takata rips off his shirt and runs around like he just won the lottery. Fulham walks across the green with his shirt off, golf bag in one hand, caddy bib in the other, trying not to laugh. The crowd loving every second of it. Phones out, people cheering. Easily one of the disrespectful yet funniest moments in golf history. Of course, not everyone was impressed. Some folks complained about respect for the game and what about the children? But hey, at least the pants stayed on. Some golfers lose their cool, others lose their minds. But in 2007, Sergio Garcia managed to do both, and left a pretty nasty surprise behind while he was at it. During the WGCCA Championship, things weren't going Garcia's way. The putts weren't dropping, frustration was building, and then it happened. On the 13th hole, after missing a short putt, Sergio leaned over and spat directly into the cup. No tantrum, no broken club, just spit. Into the very hole another player would be using right after him. It wasn't long before cameras caught the moment, and when the footage hit the airwaves, the golf world erupted. Not just because it was gross, but because it was the exact opposite of what golf is supposed to represent: respect, professionalism, and, basic hygiene. The backlash was swift. Fans were furious. Commentators shredded him. Even fellow players looked genuinely baffled. Eventually, Sergio apologized, admitting it was one of the worst things he'd ever done on a golf course. Hard to argue with that. Not many infractions come with bodily fluids involved. But before we move on, thanks for tuning into our channel. 87% of you watch but don't subscribe. Hit that button and support the channel. It's quick, easy, and means the world. Now, let's get back on the video. For the next one, we have Vijay Singh and Rory Sabatini, who turned the third round of the 2007 Sony Open into a mid-fairway drama fit for reality TV, all thanks to a caddy who dared to move. It is the first green at Wailea Country Club. Vijay's lining up a 6-foot par putt, laser-focused, quiet, and probably envisioning that satisfying drop into the cup. Then, Mick Doran, Sabatini's caddy, shifts in Vijay's line of sight. Not a leap, not a sneeze, just a move. And Vijay? He missed the putt and completely lost it, shouting a loud curse straight at Doran. Naturally, Sabatini wasn't thrilled. He jumped to his caddy's defense faster than you can say double bogey, telling Singh to knock it off and show some respect. That lit the fuse, and for a brief, glorious moment, the polite silence of golf was replaced by two pros jawing at each other like it was a hockey game. Sabatini told the New York Times he had no regrets. "I was just sticking up for my caddy, who doesn't deserve to be talked to in that manner," he said, probably while resisting the urge to throw a sand wedge. Singh, for his part, claimed the matter was settled. Sabatini disagreed, basically saying, "Not until you apologize to my guy." Next on the list is one of the pettiest and most entertaining feuds in golf history: Brooks Koepka versus Bryson DeChambeau. It all started with a difference in personalities. Koepka is a no-nonsense, straight-to-the-point kind of guy. DeChambeau, on the other hand, is more technical. He takes his time, analyzes everything, and has a very scientific approach to the game. Koepka didn't like how slow DeChambeau played, and he made that very clear in interviews.
Honestly, I'd start stroking guys. If you're going to take that long, you got to get stroked.
DeChambeau didn't appreciate the criticism. And just like that, the tension started building. Then came the moment that went viral. During a post-round interview, DeChambeau walked behind Koepka. Koepka rolled his eyes in frustration, and that single clip exploded all over the internet.
I just felt it difficult to read. Sometimes I lost my train of thought, yeah.
But Koepka took it a step further. He encouraged fans to call DeChambeau Brooksy as a joke, and even promised to buy drinks for anyone who did. Fans listened. They shouted it at tournaments, and Koepka actually paid up. The heckling got so bad that the PGA Tour had to step in and start removing people from the crowd. Eventually, the two were forced to make peace at the Ryder Cup. They even hugged it out, kind of like two kids told to say sorry after a fight. Later, they faced off in a made-for-TV match called The Match. It was half golf, half awkward reunion. They've moved on since then, but let's be honest, a part of the golf world still hopes the rivalry makes a comeback. Now for the next one, let's rewind to 1985. When a 22-year-old Vijay Singh arrived in Jakarta for the Indonesian Open with a dream, he went on to win 3 major championships and dominate the 2004 PGA Tour with 9 wins. At the time, Vijay was grinding it out on the precursor to the Asian Tour, you know, where hotel rooms are questionable and so are the scorecards. It was the second round of the tournament, and Singh was on the wrong side of the cut line. 1 stroke shy, in fact. Now, whether he knew that or just had a sixth sense for math that morning, we'll never know. But here's what we do know. Between sinking his final putt and submitting his scorecard, 1 magical stroke vanished from the record. Suddenly, Singh's score went from a painful 1 over par to a shiny 1 under. And guess what? That 1 stroke was the golden ticket to the weekend rounds. Very convenient, very suspicious, and very impossible to ignore. Tournament officials were not thrilled, and the Southeast Asian Golf Federation decided to hand him an indefinite suspension. Singh went on to become a Hall of Famer, but that 1 mysterious disappearing stroke remains one of the most eyebrow-raising, disrespectful moments in golf lore. For the next one, we have to talk about Patrick Reed. Once hailed as Captain America for his fiery Ryder Cup performances, Patrick Reed somehow managed to go from national hero to golf's version of a Bond villain, minus the charisma and with way more bunker drama. Let's set the stage. The 2019 Hero World Challenge. Beautiful course, glorious weather, and Patrick Reed, caught on camera, casually moving sand behind his ball like he was trying to pave a driveway. He wasn't improving his lie, nope, he was just taking practice swings, he claimed. Sure, and I guess I accidentally delete emails when the IRS calls. The video evidence was about as subtle as a tiger fist pump. You could literally see the sand being brushed away twice to give Reed a cleaner path to the ball. The fallout was swift and brutal. Slugger White, PGA Tour rules enforcer and part-time disappointed dad figure, hit Reed with a 2-stroke penalty after a 5-minute chat. That's it. 5 minutes. Slugger didn't need a full investigation, the footage was clearer than a Jordan Spieth fairway miss. But here's where it gets really uncomfortable. That rules violation didn't just hurt Reed, it followed his entire team to Australia for the President's Cup like a sand-filled cloud of awkwardness and Captain America's benching. Sandgate, as it should forever be known, is proof that in golf, you can't brush the rules under the rug, especially when the rug is made of sand and there's a camera right behind you. In the world of golf, nothing raises eyebrows quite like a player accused of bending the rules, especially when the accused decides to fight back and wins. For the next one, let's talk about the 2005 Masters, which gave us one of the greatest shots in golf history. Tiger Woods' miracle chip on the 16th hole that stopped, winked at the camera, and dropped like Hollywood scripted it. But behind the scenes at Augusta, oh, it wasn't just balls dropping, it was tempers too. Phil Mickelson and Vijay Singh, 2 of golf's biggest names, battled it out in the most unfortunate of ways. Just weeks before Augusta, Vijay Singh raised eyebrows by questioning the legality of Tiger Woods' driver at Bay Hill. Fast forward to the 12th hole at Augusta. Singh, ever the buzzkill, calls over a rules official to complain about Phil Mickelson's spikes. Yes, spikes. Apparently, lefty's 8mm cleats were leaving marks on the greens, which Singh found more offensive than a 4-putt. The problem was they were totally legal, just old school and obnoxiously loud. Kind of like Mickelson himself. Phil was told mid-round about the complaint. And when he got back to the locker room, oh, it was on. According to various sources, Mickelson straight up called Singh a mother and challenged him to take it outside. Yes, Phil Thumbs Up Mickelson nearly turned Augusta National into an episode of The Real Housewives of the PGA Tour. Tiger's caddy Steve Williams summed it up best. There's no love lost between those two, which is the golf version of saying, yeah, they hate each other. Loving the drama so far? Don't leave us hanging. Smash that like button and subscribe for more of the wildest golf moments you won't find anywhere else. Let's keep the game rolling. For the next one, we have Jane Blalock, a talented and tenacious golfer whose name became synonymous with one of the most controversial legal battles in LPGA history. In the early 1970s, Blalock was accused of marking her ball on the greens to gain a subtle advantage. The LPGA executive board wasn't amused. They slapped her with a $500 fine and put her on probation. But when that didn't satisfy their thirst for justice or drama, they escalated matters and handed down a 1-year suspension. Blaylock, however, didn't just accept her fate like a golfer trudging toward a water hazard. Instead, she lawyered up and got an injunction to block the suspension, allowing her to continue playing on tour. That's when things got really spicy. Not only did Blaylock win the case, but she also won the moral victory of being the golfer who beat the tour in court. The ruling reshaped how player discipline was handled and forced the LPGA to clean up its governance. So yes, Jane Blaylock was accused of a disrespectful move, but in the end, it was the LPGA's actions that didn't hold up under scrutiny. She may have mismarked a ball, but she drew a bold red line through golf history. Among cheating scandals, locker room scuffles, and spike-related beefs, let's talk about another notorious incident from 2024 when the world number 1 added something entirely new to the list: getting arrested on the way to his tee time. Yup. For the next one, we are talking about none other than Scottie Scheffler. Yes, that's Scottie Scheffler, the golden boy of golf, a new dad, a Masters champ, a guy so squeaky clean he makes milk look edgy. Ended up in the back of a police car just hours before his PGA championship round. Why? Well, allegedly, he dragged a police officer with his car while trying to enter the course amidst a traffic jam caused by a tragic accident. And no, this isn't a deleted scene from Happy Gilmore 2. This actually happened. The officer involved was directing traffic after a fatal incident involving a vendor, and somewhere in the chaos, communication broke down. Badly. Next thing anyone knows, Scheffler is being booked, fingerprinted, and probably wondering if he still has time to warm up on the range. Scheffler later called the situation a big misunderstanding, which is probably the understatement of the year. Imagine going from jail cell to first tee in the same morning. The man still teed off and finished tied for 8th because of course he did. Ice in the veins. For the next one, let's go back to 2014, a simpler time when floppy golf hats were still socially acceptable, and Dustin Johnson shocked the golf world by suddenly stepping away from the PGA Tour. Officially, it was a leave of absence to address personal challenges. Unofficially, whispers of a failed drug test swirled like a shanked tee shot in a hurricane. The PGA Tour kept things quiet, but multiple reports claimed Johnson had tested positive for drugs and was handed a 6-month suspension. Johnson, however, politely disagreed with basically all of that. He said he was taking time off voluntarily, not because he had to, but because he wanted to work on his mental health and emotional well-being. And hey, self-improvement, respect. In a January 2015 interview with ESPN, Johnson tried to clear the air, or at least blow some very vague fog through it. According to him, drugs weren't part of the problem. Didn't really have a role in my life, he claimed. Instead, he chalked up his rough patch to drinking. Not sipping, not casual cocktail hour, no. Full send, wake up wondering what city you're in kind of drinking. I would drink and drink to excess, Johnson admitted, adding that he simply made the choice to stop. That was the change. No rehab horror story, no big dramatic fall, just a quiet exit, a whole lot of rumors, and a very polished comeback. Now moving on to the next one. Phil Mickelson is known for taking aggressive lines, sometimes off the tee, sometimes in the stock market. We have the lefty who found himself on the wrong kind of leaderboard in 2016 when the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, alleged that he made a cool $931,000 off an insider trading tip. That's right, not a birdie, not an eagle, but a Wall Street oopsie worth almost $1 million. Now, before you start picturing Phil in handcuffs or wearing pinstripes instead of pin-collared polos, let's clear something up. He wasn't criminally charged. Instead, he agreed to pay back more than $1 million, because nothing says totally innocent like giving back all your ill-gotten gains. Mickelson's camp was quick to do damage control. A spokesperson said Phil had no desire to benefit from any transaction the SEC sees as questionable, which is a long-winded way of saying, my bad. The statement continued with a humble nod to ethics and integrity, the kind corporate sponsors love, claiming Phil deeply respected the high standards of the companies he works with and regretted that he may have fallen short. You think? He took full responsibility, which in this case meant writing a very large check and promising not to say anything else about it. Because when you've been the face of squeaky clean golf for decades, you definitely don't want your legacy to include stock tips from shady gamblers. For the next one, there are golf rules, and then there's whatever Phil Mickelson was doing on the 13th green at Shinnecock Hills during the 2018 US Open. It was his 48th birthday, and apparently, Phil decided to gift himself a full-blown meltdown. complete with one of the strangest, most meme-worthy moments in major championship history. Here's what happened. Phil, clearly fed up after carding 5 bogeys in 8 holes, was staring down a vicious 18-footer for bogey. The putt missed and started trickling downhill, threatening to roll right off the green. But instead of watching it play out like a normal human bound by golf's ancient etiquette, Phil sprinted after it and smacked the ball while it was still moving. Yes, on purpose, on the green. During the US Open, Rule 14-5 was invoked. That's the one about not hitting a moving ball, you know, common sense, and Phil was slapped with a 2-stroke penalty. He made a 10 on the hole and just kept it moving, smiling and tossing thumbs-ups to the crowd like he hadn't just committed golf heresy in broad daylight. Was it frustration? A protest against unfair greens? A cry for help? We still don't really know. And Phil never really clarified either. It was the kind of moment that made fans yell, "What?" at their TVs and left rule officials blinking in confusion. Golf might be a gentleman's game, but even the most polite sport on earth occasionally serves up a full-blown squabble on the greens. Now moving on, if golf had a designated trash talker, it would be Steve Williams, the tough-as-nails Kiwi caddy who spent years lugging bags and collecting beefs. While most caddies prefer to stay in the background, Williams occasionally stepped forward with a flamethrower, particularly when it came to Phil Mickelson. His opinion of Lefty? Not exactly glowing. In one famously unfiltered moment, Williams snarled, "I wouldn't call Mickelson a great player because I hate the Parak." Subtle, right? He followed that up with, "He pays me no respect at all, and hence I don't pay him any respect." It's no secret we don't get along either. This wasn't a friendly rivalry or a media misunderstanding. It was pure, undiluted loathing from the guy standing 3 feet away with your 9-iron. But Mickelson wasn't the only target of Williams' verbal bunker shots. After being unceremoniously dumped by Tiger Woods, his longtime boss and the man he'd helped to 13 majors, Williams let it rip. Following Adam Scott's win at the 2011 WGC Bridgestone Invitational, Scott's first big win with Williams on the bag, the caddy took the mic and declared he wanted to shove it right up that black 8 hole. A wildly offensive and entirely unnecessary remark that sent shockwaves through the golf world. To be fair, Williams later apologized for the comment and eventually made peace with Tiger. Time and maybe a few signed flags heals all wounds. But in a sport that prides itself on etiquette, Williams was a rare outlier, someone who didn't just break the unspoken rule of act like you've been there, but lit it on fire and tossed it in a hazard. For the final, we have Colin Montgomerie, who has never exactly been golf's warmest teddy bear. But when the fiery Scotsman eyed a move to the US PGA Tour, American players didn't exactly roll out the welcome mat. If anything, they rolled out the ice rink. Fred Funk, never one to sugarcoat, went full scorched earth. He's the jerk of the world as far as I'm concerned, and you can write that down because when I see him, I'll tell him to his face. That's not locker room banter. That's WWE energy with a 7-iron. And it wasn't just Funk fuming. Bob Estes chimed in with the golf equivalent of, "You can't sit with us," predicting Monty would get the cold shoulder from plenty of guys on tour. Why all the rage? One line from Monty that really struck a nerve. He suggested Brad Faxon, who'd recently knocked him out of a match play tournament, wouldn't be mentally sharp at the Ryder Cup because he was going through a divorce. Golf is many things, but TMZ-level personal jabs are generally off limits. Estes blasted the comment as a low blow, and even the normally diplomatic Lauren Roberts said, "Taking shots at a guy's personal life is a little too much." Montgomerie, of course, probably shrugged it all off with his trademark scowl and a few muttered words in a Scottish brogue. But if he expected the US Tour to greet him with handshakes and pints, he clearly forgot that American golfers can hold grudges as tightly as they grip putters. Bottom line, in a game known for civility, Monty showed up with a verbal grenade, and the locker room never forgot. If you thought golf was all about quiet swings and polite claps, these moments might just change your mind. From on-course drama to moments that had everyone talking, the fairway's not always as calm as it seems. Want more of that juicy golf gossip and jaw-dropping drama? Hit that subscribe button, share this with your golf crew, and stick around, because the next swing might just surprise you. And now that you're still here, we've got another awesome video for you to check out right in the middle of the screen. Enjoy!